Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar on how to prevent drop-offs in the eSign journey. Just a few house rules before we begin. If you have a question during the session, please ask us in the Q&A box that you'll see below. We'll either take it up then if it relates to something that we're showing on screen at that particular point in time, or we'll take it up after the demo, and the total demo plus presentation that we've prepared will take about 20 minutes in total. We'll also be opening up the floor after 20-25 minutes for questions where you can verbally ask us a question. So we encourage you to ask questions and love it when the session is interactive at the end. So the broad structure of the webinar, I'll be giving 2 to 3 minute introduction to legality and us for those of you who are new to us. Then I'll be setting the context of eSign drop-offs and why exactly they occur and how we solve it. And then Ronit, our product manager, will be showing you the features that we built to prevent drop-offs. He'll show it to you live in a demo. And of course, finally, we'll be opening the floor for a Q&A. I'm Aditya, the head of marketing at Legality. And today I'm joined by Ronit, a product manager at Legality, who also played a key role in building a lot of the features that you're going to be seeing today. And to those of you new to Legality, we are a document infrastructure platform. That is, we provide Indian businesses with an end-to-end platform to digitize each and every step of the document execution process in a fast, easy, and compliant way, right? So from creating documents, filling them up directly from your data systems, getting them e-signed in compliance with the IT Act, getting them stamped in a legal way in 31 states, preventing fraud in the digital document process, incorporating the small operational tasks that are involved in the paperwork process, storing documents securely. And of course, for banks and NBFCs, we also provide a fast and easy way to plug into the government NESL infrastructure. So it's an end-to-end deep solution for the singular but important problem of document execution. And we are currently in use by verticals from more than 2,500 businesses, from banks, NBFCs, MFIs, MNCs, as well as high growth startups, right? So like paperwork processes are fast being digitized in India, and most of it is happening via Legality. So today's webinar is going to be focused on a very specific but critical problem that happens in the paperwork process that businesses really need to spend more time thinking about, right? eSign drop-offs. And the reason for this webinar stems from a big misconception out there in the market about eSign and digital paperwork process, right? There's a persistent belief that eSign is a very simple, easy plugin that you simply implement quickly in flows and it's done, right? Once you do that, it's a smooth process automatically. And you can then pat yourself on the back, put it in your board reports, annual reports, and things like that, right? That we've digitized this process. In this macro like dream world, there are no drop-offs. It's just a simple add-on to your existing processes, right? And at a macro level, in boardrooms, in rooms where you make decisions, this simplicity makes for a great story, right? To really sell the project internally. But on the ground, to actually succeed with eSign at scale in a manner that works, in a manner that actually drives the business results that you want, this story simply doesn't fly, because unlike the simplistic version, the actual customer journey for eSign is many small steps for your end customer. And here we've displayed it on screen. So what we've done here on screen is we've identified each and every touch point that your customer has to experience in order to successfully complete an eSign journey, right? And it is in these multiple touch points that go into a single eSign transaction where drop-offs are possible, right? Because each step is a potential flashpoint where the customer could drop off. And some of these steps you simply take for granted, right? Like you never even actually think of it. For example, it's always assumed that the eSign link being sent, being received, being opened by the customer is a very simple thing that will just automatically work all the time. But this very simple looking stage also contains 3 avenues for drop-offs, right? Link may go to spam if it's sent via email. It may get lost in SMS. No, who checks SMS these days? Or like you treat SMS as a spam box, right? If you send it by SMS. Customer may not have an email ID in case you're sending it via email, right? And in some cases, and we've seen this, right? The document itself doesn't get displayed when they click on the link as part of the process. So each of these points of friction will result in some portion of customers dropping off. Or let's take the next stage, right? When they open the link and eSign. When we see demos internally, right? Like when we give you demos and when you witness various demos, you take it for granted that, okay, it's these many steps, it's an easy process. But as eSign is deployed across mass scale products, say retail lending or micro lending, it's very important to remember that the end signer and the vast majority of end signers are way more comfortable in their local language rather than English. So if the interface for eSign that they open and there's multiple screens involved in that is in English, it's a big problem, right? It's again a point of friction that can cause drop-offs, not only with the customer, but maybe if it's a field or branch-led flow, even with your branch officers, right? So I won't go through all the steps, but if you notice that each and every small step basically has a friction layer that will push some of your customers off. Now, this obviously the nature of drop-offs is that this won't happen, say, in a majority of cases, but it will definitely happen in a non-trivial set of cases. So let's say, as an example, you do 1,000 documents a day, right? In very common in lending use cases, right? Or stockbroking use cases. If your drop-offs happen 8% of the time, right? 92% of the time is still succeeding, but you have 8% drop-offs. That's 80 potential lost customers a day, which will obviously compound over time and will result in a clear-cut daily business loss for you simply because of that 8% drop-off in the eSign process. Till now, businesses have obsessed over drop-offs in other legs of digital journeys, like in the KYC process, in the payments process, right? And all of these are largely solved for problems or being rapidly solved for. But for some reason, drop-offs in eSign have largely been neglected till now. And over the first few years of legality being live, we noticed these various drop-offs and realized that it was harming eSign adoption, right? So if you want to move into a paperless future, then we have to solve this list of long drop-off points, like this long list of drop-off points. So that's why over the years, we built a basket of features at various legs of the journey designed specifically to prevent and mitigate these drop-offs. And these features, which we'll show you in the demo today, are designed to plug all the points of friction that we've identified in the eSign journey, right? For example, links getting lost in spam, we built India's first eSign via WhatsApp service. Since most signers are familiar with WhatsApp and know that way better than SMS inbox or email, right? For the eSign interface being confusing, we built the ability to switch interfaces to 11 different local Indian languages, just like you see in ATMs today, right? In a few minutes, we'll show you these features live in action. But before we move on to the demo, I wanted to talk about probably our most critical drop-off prevention feature. And this is a feature we can't really show it in a demo because it happens purely in the backend. And that's our eSign reliability engine, right? So one major source of drop-offs, which you can see on screen, is simply when the eSign provider is facing downtime, right? So Aadhaar eSign, which is the by far and away the most predominant form of eSign. And most of you here, when you're thinking of eSign, you're thinking of Aadhaar eSign, right? It's like probably 85% plus of digital paperwork transactions happen by Aadhaar eSign. So basically, Aadhaar eSign architecture has 4 players in a transaction. One is, of course, UIDAI. The other is your end signer who is interacting with an application like legality, right? So the end signer, UIDAI, the end signer, legality. And legality basically facilitates the entire end-to-end experience. The final player, of course, is a regulated entity which does the Aadhaar authentication and generates the eSign certificate. This is known as the eSign service provider, right? And it's this eSign service provider that determines whether an Aadhaar eSign fundamentally happens or not in that transaction, right? And at the scale, like eSign providers often face downtime, right? And this is inevitable right at the scale with which they operate. Like in status quo, like eSign of the dream world I was talking about earlier, the entire process just stops here at this downtime. If it's a eSign for a loan agreement, once this downtime happens, there's no loan agreements for that period of downtime. If it's eSign for onboarding to, say, a stockbroking app, there's no onboarding while this downtime happens. And in many cases, honestly, this means that you lose the customer forever. Even in the best case scenario, while the customer may try again later, you have basically ruined that customer's experience for this touch point, right? Both scenarios, both the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, are scenarios you presumably want to avoid. So that's why we built an eSign reliability engine to specifically prevent this from happening, right? So what we've done is we've partnered with 3 different ESPs: Protean, more commonly known as NSDL, CDSL, and Verasys, right? And what our eSign reliability system does is that it basically periodically detects success rates for each ESP. If an ESP, say, success rate falls below a failure threshold, I think it's around 65 to 75%, it's a number between that. then we basically remove it from circulation, right? We remove it from displaying to customers till its success rate passes the threshold again, right? That way, when a customer clicks on the eSign button, they're only taken to an ESP with the highest possible success rate at any given point in time. And this is a completely automated system that happens in the backend. No friction for you, no friction for your end customer. But because it happens on the backend, we can't really show it to you in a demo. In some cases, we route it to the highest success rate ESP. There may be some reason it fails at that stage as well, right? We have an additional backup to a backup for this scenario, right? Where the customer simply does a manual refresh and they are then taken to a backup ESP to this primary ESP to complete the eSign. And so the results are quite clear, right? Since we've introduced eSign reliability over the last 12 months, we've reduced failure rates for eSign by 80% for successful eSigns in the first 2 attempts, right? And that's approximately an 80% reduction in drop-offs daily, right? For this scenario. Of course, this 2% is also something we want to minimize, and it could be for various non-ESP related reasons. And that's why we built the other features that we're going to show you in the demo, right? The idea is to get this to 0.1% failure rate or even less in all scenarios. Like we take this for granted in a lot of other digital flows. We want to ensure eSign processes meet this standard as well. And it's something we're working towards, right? We've already reduced it by 80%. Through the features we're going to show you in the demo, we hope to reduce it even further radically in the coming months. So I'll hand it over to Ronit to show you these features in 45 seconds. But before that, there will still be outliers. We build these features, there'll still be outliers, right? The drop-off will still happen despite all the prevention we built at each step, right? In such a scenario, it's important to still try and identify the step at which the drop-off happened and why it happened, so that either you can modify your digital flow. So maybe it's something in the instructions you're providing to customer, or it's something on legality's end. And when we get notified of it, we can build a feature or make a product improvement to mitigate this in the future, right? So for that, we've just launched this feature called notification logs. It's a system to basically monitor and track the reason for a failure of eSign completion. Till date, we've been showing that this eSign has failed, this has succeeded. Now we actually provide the reasons as well, right? And this is the first time in the demo that we'll be showing this feature in public. So right, that's enough from me. With that out of the way, let's dive straight into the demo so you can actually see a lot of these features in action. Over to you, Ronit.
Thank you, Aditya. Hello, everyone. Today we'll be going through 3 different flows to show you how we tackle drop-offs effectively. So let's start with the Aadhaar flow. I'll be using my mobile screen for this. So sharing my screen.
Yep, we can see your mobile.
All right. So imagine I'm a signer who needs to sign a document. The first challenge is noticing that I've received a sign invitation. Legality has 3 ways of communicating with a signer: through email, through SMS, and through WhatsApp. So let's take a look at the email that I'm getting. All right. As you can see, the logo here can be customized to display your organization's branding. And the current top panel color scheme and the buttons color scheme can be changed to match your brand's colors.
And I think you can also customize the messaging as well in the email.
Correct. You can also customize the content of the message, and on top of it, you can also customize the sender ID, which is sending the email. Next mode of communication is SMS. SMS can also be sent in Indian languages, which means that SMS just broadens the audience that you can serve. And lastly, let's consider WhatsApp. With the highest open rates in India, WhatsApp ensures that your messages get viewed. And you can also customize the messages here as well. So for now, let's go ahead with WhatsApp. I click on the signing link. So this is the preview page where the document is displayed to the signer. We have analyzed the signing journey across devices, and over 70% of signing journeys happen on mobile. This is why we've optimized our entire flow to work seamlessly on any mobile screen. The URL of the signing journey, as you can see, can also be customized, and your brand's name can be added to it so that your customer doesn't feel like they're being redirected to a different website altogether.
I think for some context as well, we've recently seen in a few stockbroking journeys as well that, for example, the document display here, very basic feature, often does not display as well, right? Creating some confusion of, is this the right step? And the sign proceeds without document display, right? So right from document display, and in some other cases, we've seen where document is cut off. You have to scroll to the side very unintuitively to see the full document. So as Ronit said, and since 70% of journeys happen on mobile, we've specifically built with mobile in mind first, so that the entire thing displays in the most intuitive way for the customer, which, because it's successful, they don't really think about it. But if there are issues in it, then they start to think about it and a reason for drop off. So we built it to eliminate all of that friction. Yeah, Ronit.
Yeah. The signing journey also includes branding elements. You can change the call to action button and the top panel color to reflect your organization's colors, and also the logo on the top right of the screen. Now, notice the button on the bottom right. The button text is not in English but in Hindi, saying Aage Bade, which means proceed. Over here, it feels like a small text, but the positioning also makes it obvious that the button is to proceed. But let's take a look at what happens when we click on it. So I click on the text. Yeah, there you go. A signer who is comfortable with Hindi but not with English would easily be able to read everything written. In contrast, think of a signer not comfortable with a language. Let's try changing the language to one I'm not familiar with. Okay, let me go ahead with Malayalam for now. One second. Let me just try clicking on the signing link again. Yeah, there you go. See, now I have no clue what I'm agreeing to. Just changing it back to Hindi. One more nuance in the 10 local languages that we have is that we have manually translated each line of our signing journey, considering the context of each step. We also use transliteration for common terms like sign and OTP to make sure that signers are comfortable while signing the document. And colloquial terms like sign are commonly used by vernacular speakers who are more comfortable with sign than the full Hindi translation, which is Hastakshar. And don't worry, spacing changes for different languages have also been adjusted to avoid misalignment issues. So now let's proceed with Aadhaar sign. I click on the checkbox. I click on the CTA. Oh, I just noticed I have turned on mobile data and the range is really low. So I'm entering my Aadhaar.
We can spend some time on this screen as well, if you can zoom out slightly. So what you'll notice is that this screen is off legality environment, right? As I mentioned to you earlier, it switches to the highest success rate ESP. So in this case, it's Protean that's showing. In other cases, it will be CDSL that's showing. But often what happens is when there's a optimized journey and then it breaks to an external party, customer is often confused that, is this a scam? It's not a scam, we all know it. But for a customer, there'll be a portion of customers who'll be like, what is this new, completely different looking layout website, right? So even we partnered with Protean and we partnered with CDSL to bring branding to this screen as well, so that the customer knows that this is also part of the same journey. So that legality logo on the top right, for example, can be changed to your logo. The color branding can be changed to your color branding. Yeah.
Yeah, and about the text Greasafe Private Limited, you can see Bank ABC. That logo can be changed to the logo of your organization. Anyways, I've checked the checkbox to authorize and sent OTP. Just checking if I've received OTP. All right, I click on verify OTP. Okay. After signing, the signer sees a success screen, this success screen. If your customer flow doesn't end with e-signing, you can skip the screen altogether or set a display time to guide them to the next step in their workflow.
And in an API journey, you can directly lead them to your next step in, say, an onboarding eSign as a part of it. And the next step is something else that's not on legality. You can redirect them completely. Another key feature, which again happens in the backend, if you notice, Ronit is on very low connection 4G, not on Wi-Fi. That is another set, apart from downtime, that's another probably big cause of drop-offs, right? Like network areas are patchy. Often you won't have reliable access to Wi-Fi. So that is also a very important thing to ensure. And we've ensured that because we serve micro lenders across the length and breadth of the country. We built the backend and our backend ops to ensure that it works even in such scenarios. That's another drop-off prevention mechanism, mitigation measure that we've taken.
Yes.
We'll just take questions at the end. So a few people have raised. If you can ask in the Q&A box, and we'll obviously take it at the end as well, open mic, but we can ask in the Q&A box, we can address it. Otherwise, we may not be able to complete the demo.
Okay, so after signing, now that I as a signer have signed the document, your customers usually want things to be wrapped quickly. And that's where automated sign comes in. With automated sign, there is zero time lag between signing and receiving the completed document. So I'd enabled automated sign for the current flow.
So
And
the automated sign is for your authorized signatory, right? Because often if the authorized signatory sign is manual, customer does their part, they sign. But at your bank, NBFC companies end, let's say the authorized signatory is on leave. Let's say they just swamped with other work, right? Not to be the authorized signatory. It's like they have a primary job as well. And they may delay the process for great reasons as well. That delay itself could also be a source of your customer getting impatient and bad customer experience, or at the worst case scenario, a drop off, right? With automated sign, you can ensure there's virtually no time lag. It literally is a 30 to 60-second process for the sign to automatically get fixed.
as you can see, I'd received this WhatsApp message for me signing the document at 12:25, and within the same minute, I've received a document that everyone has signed. Received the message that everyone has signed the document, and I've also received the signed document and the audit trail. Let's take a look at the signed document.
Yeah. And one thing to remember while the document is opening is that in WhatsApp, they get the document directly. So what happens often in, say, an SMS notification, it's a link. They have to click on that link, then they have to go somewhere, download the document, right? With WhatsApp, you can avoid that because customer transparency is a big thing, especially in regulated entity industries where you have to share the agreement. In many cases, customer will call you if they don't receive the agreement, right? Creating more friction for you. In WhatsApp, it's very easy. There's no doubt they get the documents directly in their WhatsApp. They don't even have to leave WhatsApp throughout this.
Yeah, exactly. We've opened the document and just zoomed in on the e-signs that have been affixed on the document. On the left, the Aadhaar sign, which we had done through the flow that we showed. And on the right, you can see ABC Bank, which is an automated virtual sign which has been affixed on the document right after I signed the document.
So two things here. The automated virtual sign is one mode of automated signing. We also have automated doc signer, which is possible. So in a lot of digital lending use cases, our doc signer plugin is being used to automatically affix the regulated entity signature, right? In case of automated virtual sign, you can also obviously change the appearance of how the signature appears. And final thing, the coordinates here are just for demo purposes, but you can basically choose where you want the coordinates and the signs to appear on the document as well.
Yeah. And Aditya, I think we can carry on.
Yeah, great. So that's the end-to-end journey. If you notice at each step, there's a nuance and a feature, which in and of itself may be a small feature, but it's designed to basically prevent that step's particular drop-off potential, right? And reduce the drop-off potential of that particular step, right? And so we built these small features at each step of the journey to plug these gaps. But there are some scenarios for some documents, for example, a successful Aadhaar eSign, let's say all of this goes well, right? We've done this WhatsApp, Aadhaar eSign, right? Directed to the correct ESP. They understood it, it's in their language, they get the document on WhatsApp, right? This journey proceeds, like it's successful, right? Often for some documents, you may not want the level of steps that an Aadhaar eSign inherently has to be there, right? Whether successful Aadhaar eSign is something you want to avoid completely. Like even a successful Aadhaar eSign, because it involves a OTP, it involves entering the Aadhaar, getting the OTP, entering the Aadhaar consent, entering the OTP, and then proceeding, right? For some documents, you may want to just collect a quick digital acknowledgement, right? Like for example, for KFS documents, we're seeing a lot of customers collect quick digital acknowledgements on KFS and then doing Aadhaar eSign for the final loan agreement, right? In such scenarios, you don't even want the successful Aadhaar eSign journey. You want an alternative, quick digital acknowledgement that you can do with even less steps than Aadhaar eSign to further reduce drop-offs for these type of documents. So for that, we built a new feature, a new signing type called Quick Sign, which Ronit will show you now quickly.
Yes.
Again, if your hand is raised, please do ask in the Q&A box. For example, we've received a question in the Q&A box that there are drop-offs due to customer mobile not being linked to the mobile. That's a great question, right? So the question, is there a chance that legality can know if the numbers are linked to their Aadhaar? So to the second one, no, there's no chance for legality to know the numbers are linked. That can only be known by UIDAI, and no private entity is permitted to actually have access to that data. Definitely not an application service provider under the eSign framework, which is what legality comes under. But it's a great question, like drop-offs due to customer not being linked to the mobile. So after we show you Quick Sign, we'll be showing you this exact scenario and how we solve for that scenario as well. And the second question we've received is, would the customer receive SMS or on WhatsApp after eSign, right? So as Ronit showed you, right, there you see the agreement, it's come as a PDF on WhatsApp. At the same time, it's your choice. We can offer it through 3 different modes: SMS, email, and WhatsApp. You can choose how you want to send it to the customer. So that choice is yours. You can do SMS, email, and WhatsApp. You've just seen that where WhatsApp is possible, it has a highest success rate because customers infinitely prefer WhatsApp over, say, an SMS or email. But you have the option to send it via SMS and email as well. Post eSign, like the choice is completely yours. We offer all 3. Yeah, Ronit, let's move on to Quick Sign.
Yeah. So as the name suggests, it's a very quick way to complete an e-signing process. Here again, I've received a WhatsApp notification for quick signing, and I click on the eSign now button. That's the first click. So here my signing journey opens up. I preview the document. I click on the proceed button. That's my second click. Now I see signing details. I see the name which will appear on in the signed document. I see the consent form that I have to check. I check the consent form. That's the third click. And then I click on sign document. And done. Just 4 clicks to complete the signing. And similar to the previous scenario, if the next signer has automated eSign configured, the whole process will be completed in seconds.
And as we mentioned, again, this screen itself need not be shown. You can automatically redirect them to a screen you want to show if you want to move them along the journey. Because even the existence of this screen that we're showing you here in the demo here could be a source of drop-off as well, right? It's a small touch point, but it could be a source of drop-off. So we built support to redirect this to the screen of your choice, like a landing page or the next step in your flow, right? That can be done via our SDKs. That can also be done via our dynamic URL derouting. through the API. So that's QuickSign, again, where it's literally the least potential for drop-offs in cases where you don't need an Aadhaar eSign, right? Because Aadhaar eSign you often do, even though it's like more steps than say a QuickSign because of compliance reasons. There may be some cases where compliance permits you to do a simple digital acknowledgement and you don't need to do an Aadhaar eSign, right? You need to do a quick digital acknowledgement. In cases where compliance permits that, QuickSign is basically the least drop-off way. It has no dependency on an external ESP. It has no dependency on OTP. It has literally 4 clicks, and with the automated sign, basically 4 clicks and it's done, like end to end, it's done. So that's QuickSign. Now coming to the third question and the question we received, the context we received, right? So we have eSign reliability, which takes you to the highest success rate ESP. Great. But there was another fourth player in this Aadhaar eSign thing, the most important one, which is UIDAI, right? Ultimately, the Aadhaar authentic OTP is sent by UIDAI to do the final step of the authentication. Now, UIDAI often faces downtime, right? And so what do you do in cases where UIDAI faces downtime? eSign reliability won't work there, right? Because that's switching between ESPs. But all of that assumes that Aadhaar itself is facing uptime, has uptime, and is online. Things like local language, WhatsApp, ultimately none of it will matter if UIDAI is down at the end, right, for Aadhaar eSign. And in most cases, UIDAI is not down. So it's there in 95% plus scenarios. What do you do in such a scenario, right? Because the alternative often is either you stop and you tell the customer, come back later, which is a clear-cut drop-off then and there. Or you say, let's pull out the pen and paper and have physical documentation, for which it may seem simple for a transaction, but basically you will have to continue to maintain like a physical logistics leg of the process. Simply for these edge case scenarios, you have to maintain the fixed cost of paper, the ability to print, get it signed, the cumbersome process of getting it signed, then you'll have to manage those documents, store them. So all of the pain that you're running away from with physical paperwork, you won't fully be away from that. And those signs are easy to do on blank form signing. So there's like all the thorns associated with physical signing come back again in these edge case scenarios, right? So is there a way that, okay, look, UIDAI is down, so Aadhaar eSign is completely off the table, right? Another case is mobile linkage. Let's say mobile is not linked to Aadhaar, in which case you can't do OTP sign, right? You may be able to do other types of Aadhaar eSign, like a face sign or a fingerprint Aadhaar biometric sign. But in these scenarios, what do you do? Is there a way to basically not do physical and do a backup option that's more secure than physical? It may not be as secure as Aadhaar, which is obviously the gold standard, but it's way more secure than physical signatures. And it's digital, where you don't have to actually do the physical leg. That's where the third thing that we want to show you today comes in, which Ronit will now show on screen, which is called Aadhaar first routing.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm using my desktop screen. This is legalities dashboard. Let's go ahead with creating a flow from scratch for this. So I click on create. I click on new document. Now I upload a file. Let's take a sample loan agreement over here. I attach a stamp paper to the sample loan agreement and I click on next. I add the first signer's name, which is your customer. I configure both virtual and Aadhaar sign. And in Aadhaar, for the sake of this demo, I'm turning on only OTP, Aadhaar OTP, and I save this configuration. Now, in invitee level options, I click on invitee level options, and I see an option called prioritize Aadhaar for invitee. I toggle this on. Over here, there is another toggle for order level retry count. I'll explain what it is in some time. And over here, I have Aadhaar subtype as OTP on phone, which was the only subtype we had selected, and retry attempts. So under retry attempts, I add one retry attempt. What this means is after a signer completes one attempt of Aadhaar, of trying to do Aadhaar eSign on the ESP's page and fails to do, they would get another retry attempt. After they fail to do an Aadhaar eSign in that retry attempt as well, we will turn on the option of doing virtual sign for them as a fallback mechanism. So here we are assuming that the signer is failing twice, which means that there may be some problem even after having backup ESPs, and so we are switching to virtual sign. So now I save this configuration. To add an internal signer, I add another invitee, and I'm adding an automated virtual sign as the internal signer sign. So I add name and email. I turn on automated sign. I choose an automated sign profile and I input the password.
This
And I've,
ban, you've automated, like you've switched on the virtual sign for the first signer, right?
yeah, I have
Yeah.
Aadhaar and
Okay.
virtual.
So that's important. You have to choose the type of backup signing types that you can offer, right? Like there's multiple types. You can just toggle on what backups you want to offer in case the retry for Aadhaar doesn't work.
Correct. So now we have configured Aadhaar first for the first invitee, which is your customer, and the second, the internal bank signer or the organization signer, we have configured automated virtual sign. We click on next. Here you can add your own custom coordinates if you want. For now, I'm clicking on send. So now I've sent out this document. Over here, quickly, we can just take a look at notification logs. It's taking a second to load. Okay, I guess let me just sign this document first. Maybe then it'll load. All right, so I've just received an invitation to eSign, again a branded email. I click on the sign button. Here I preview the document. I click on proceed. I select Aadhaar sign. Aadhaar sign is the only sign which is visible at this point. I click on proceed again. Okay, I get this checkbox for agreement and I click on sign document. Okay, now let's say I'm on this page and let's say due to some reason I enter my Aadhaar number and it doesn't have a mobile number associated with it. So what I do is I drop off from the scenario by clicking on the cancel button. So I click on the cancel button.
Or in the case of your customers scenario, they'll try it and they won't get the OTP and they'll just
Correct.
exit. Yeah.
So now I will click on proceed again. I will click on Aadhaar sign again. And click
So
on
remember, we selected one retry. So this is that retry that Ronald is doing right now because you are configured that you need to let them retry once. At this stage, you don't want to display the fallback because often what happens, and these are agent scenarios or field-led scenarios, where it's in the tablet of the field or branch officer. The apprehension is that if you offer a backup to Aadhaar eSign, they'll always choose that backup first, not Aadhaar for 90% of scenarios. But for 90% of scenarios, we want Aadhaar because ultimately that's the standard flow. This removes that discretion because you're setting the logic of how many retries will only Aadhaar be displayed for.
correct. So after checking the consent, I click on sign document again. Now I have been redirected to CDSL's page, which is another service provider. Again, we have partnered up with them for custom branding, and your logo can be displayed over here in place of logo written. Again, for this case, in case UIDAI is down or in case my Aadhaar is not linked to my mobile number, I would have to drop off from here. So I click on cancel. Yes. Now I have retried once. My first attempt was also resulted in a drop off, and I want to try this for a third time. So I click on proceed. Now, as you can see, along with the option of Aadhaar eSign, I get another option which is virtual eSign on my third attempt. and this is the fallback mechanism. So I as a signer had to try signing with Aadhaar twice, and on the third attempt I know that signing isn't happening right now, and I had configured that after 2 attempts I should be able to sign using virtual. So now I select virtual sign, I click on proceed. I have to do authentication for virtual sign. So I copy verification OTP.
Again, of course, this OTP can come on WhatsApp or SMS as well.
Yes. I draw a signature. I click on proceed and sign document. And this document has been signed.
So that's Aadhaar first routing, right? That's another fallback to the fallback where Aadhaar has routed to the highest success rate ESP. That somehow had an error. Let's say that error was not because of, they still had Aadhaar mobile linkage and UIDI was still up. They get taken to the backup, right? Which in this case was CDSL. In some cases, CDSL will be primary and Protean will be the backup to backup. And then there's Verasis, which we also have, which is backup to both. In that scenario, UIDI is down. Then in those edge case scenarios, you don't want to go to physical, but you want something more secure than physical and you want it to still be digital. That's where Aadhaar first routing will come in. Core use case for Aadhaar first, to be honest, is a field-led flow where it's happening on the tablet of, say, a branch officer, where what often happens, and this is the most common use case for Aadhaar first, is that by default, say a biometric eSign, where they put it on biometrics. Let's say the biometrics don't work, faded thumbprints or something. Then after 2 retry attempts, Aadhaar OTP displays as an option. Then the field agent can make them try Aadhaar OTP. Let's say the mobile is not linked or UIDI is down. Try OTP, that doesn't work. So they've tried 3 types of Aadhaar eSign, biometric twice, OTP once. And then the field agent gets an option for virtual sign. They only get that option after those 3 retry attempts are configured, or how many ever retry attempts that you've configured in your logic in the dashboard that Ronit showed you, right? Our first routing is a great way to mop up the edge cases and ensure they are digital as well, in a way that's way better than physical, right? But while still ensuring that Aadhaar is the first option and mandatorily the first option. Like they can't at the first attempt try the backup, right? That's Aadhaar first routing again, right? We told you that there were 2-3% of cases where it's still, even after eSign reliability, it's still failing. Aadhaar first is one of the features designed to plug that and make that also further less, right? Now, our final feature, as we mentioned, which we wanted to first launch on this webinar is, of course, eSign notification logs. But before that, there were a few questions we received, so we'll address them first, related to the Aadhaar flow, right? Not related to notification logs. So one is, of course, in QuickSign, can we have OTP? No, QuickSign is completely OTP free. But at the same time, look at it this way, QuickSign is on one end of the spectrum, Aadhaar is on the other end of the spectrum. We have various options like virtual sign, where there's additional authentication layers that you can add, like OTP, face capture, GPS capture, and you can add those types of eSigns as well. Here, shown you 2 ends of the spectrum. QuickSign, for where you need a quick digital acknowledgement, and Aadhaar eSign, which most people use for 90+% of the documents. But you have OTP-based virtual signatures as well, which is what Ronit showed you right now. The second question is that if, I think this question was asked, I think after QuickSign or before Aadhaar first, where mobile is not linked, right? We were explaining how mobile number may not be linked. The question is it possible to transfer to the other number and do the sign? So one thing to remember is that the mobile authentication that they enter, so you may have a mobile number where you send them the WhatsApp link. That number is not linked to the number that they enter in the Aadhaar eSign screen. In the Aadhaar eSign screen, when they enter the Aadhaar number, OTP goes to whatever other mobile there is. So the mobile in which you're sending the eSign link is not relevant here. It all depends on what mobile they have access to for the OTP on which they're receiving Aadhaar. So that transfer can only happen by definition by the person who has control of the mobile. Like the software does not have control of that mobile that they're getting the OTP in, which they have either access to or not. So there's no software way to actually switch the number. It's only in the hands of the customer, because ultimately the Aadhaar eSign, where you enter Aadhaar, get OTP, happens only by the customer and the eSign service provider. They cannot on the fly switch the mobile number which is linked to Aadhaar. There's a whole UIDI process for that. So yeah, it's not possible in case mobile is not linked to for the for legality or anyone in the digital leg of the journey to transfer the number for the customer, right? Because fundamentally that authentication or final OTP authentication is purely and 100% in the hands of the customer. What you can, right? That's another question we received. The another question we received is that sometimes customers are impatient, right? UIDAI sends the OTP late and they click multiple times, retry OTP, resend. And UIDAI often basically says that due to congestion, we're not sending you. UIDAI drops them off because they've tried too many times. UIDAI thinks it's an attack, right? And UIDAI's own logic like drops them off. And that's correct. So there is a delay in that scenario. So all the features we've showed you don't solve for all the other reasons. But as I said, drop-offs is a case of keep plugging in holes as they arise, right? So we plug in all the other holes, and obviously this hole is still there, right? If the customer keeps refreshing the OTP button. Unfortunately, that screen is out of our control. Like it's a UIDI level logic. So there's no way to actually physically prevent the customer from doing that if they so wish. So what we would say is, look, we plugged in all the holes and mitigated other drop-offs. This drop-off would still be an open item. At the same time, there are ways to try and mitigate this drop-off. Through custom messaging that we provide, right? For example, in the WhatsApp that Ronin showed you, in the SMS that Ronin showed you, in the email that Ronin showed you, even in the custom consent that Ronin showed you, right? The consent box where they're clicking consent, you can basically customize your messaging. You can give very clear warnings to the customer that, hey, UIDI OTP may take 60 seconds, so please wait before retrying. For the UIDI OTP, wait 60 seconds before resending OTP, right? Have this in your SMS, have this in your email if you're doing it by email, have this in your WhatsApp, right? Very clearly in bold, right? And in your custom consent, require them to tick the eSign consent, and you can have a custom consent which says, I acknowledge that UIDI OTP may take 60 seconds, for example. Right? That's another possible workaround. Basically, you're plugging in that message that it will take 60 seconds up to 60 seconds everywhere. Again, it will not physically prevent the customer from doing this retry, but it can mitigate it for a large section of customers who may be doing this retry because it's genuinely just confused, thinking it doesn't work, right? So while we can't control the customer on the ESP screen because it's technologically and legally not possible, and physically is like impossible as well, we can mitigate it through custom messaging. But yeah, at the same time, it may still be open, and like fundamentally, that will still remain an open item.
Before we take up the next question, we can quickly take a look at
notification logs, right? And a lot of these questions are very relevant to notification logs, right? Because what if they've done refresh too many times and UADI has booted them off? What if customer has just clicked cancel? There's no good reason. Customer has just literally just pressed cancel at that point. There could be multiple, as I said, drop off is like many holes, keep plugging in those holes. We think these features have plugged in a lot of those holes. There will still be holes. Visibility over these holes is very important so that we can take future action to mitigate them, right? And that's where notification logs comes in. Yeah.
Correct. So
also for some of these questions which we answered, in case we've not answered them satisfactorily, after we show you notification logs, we'll give you mic access and we can have a discussion on the answers as well.
Correct. So this was a signed document which we had signed, and on this is the details page where a sender can access. Through this, they know what is happening to a particular document which they've sent out for signing. So over here, this is my invitee who had signed this document. I click on the three dots on this card, and I click on notification logs. Okay. So when I click on notification logs, this is the screen that I see. Over here, I'm seeing the channel as WhatsApp. I'm seeing the notification type, and I'm seeing the status remark. So for WhatsApp, we have a status called delivered to the recipient, and the next status called read by the recipient. Over here, we have channels, and in channels, we can see notification logs for all three: email, SMS, and WhatsApp. So in case if I want to take a look at emails, I click on the email checkbox, and this is where I take a look at emails. So now there may be customers that you come across who might tell you that they haven't received a notification. So you can easily refer to notification logs. You can take a look at the timestamp when this notification has been sent, and you can inform them that you must have received notification at around 10:19 or at around this time, so that it makes it easier for them to refer to their inbox and just get that notification. in a better manner. We also have a filter over here to filter basis notification type. So if you want to see when a specific events notification had been sent, you can just check a particular notification type to take a look at this. So, yeah.
Great. So that's notification logs, right? Because ultimately there could be other reasons. And so you can instruct your customers, you know that, okay, here I need to insert a custom instruction to prevent this. Here it's a problem with my previous step before eSign, the KYC step that can solve this issue. So notification logs is designed to give you that visibility, because we plugged in these features, we've reduced some drop-offs, there may be others that crop up. Notification logs is designed for future-proofing the journey, that, okay, even if it slips through the gaps, I can at least, here it didn't work, future transactions I can prevent it. So that's notification logs. Great. So we'll move on to questions. Before that, just I think some people always ask me, how can they reach out to us? Just come to questions in 2 minutes. That's the webinar done. Now, if you want to activate any of these features, right? Most of these features, if you're a legality customer, you already have access to. I would say 90+% of these features that we've shown you, almost all you have access to. It's just that there is often low awareness that these exist. And often you can improve your conversion rates with your existing plans. So if you're an existing customer, please contact your legality POC or write to us at support@legality.com. If you're not a customer, you can write to us at support@legality.com, or we'll send you an email. Actually, the best way to do is we'll send you an email with a recording within the next 48 hours. And you can reply to that email. Or you can go to legality.com as well and just get in touch with us there. Second is, if you want to stay in the loop with legality and the wider industry, right? We have a WhatsApp and email updates facility where we give real-time product updates every week. We give you case studies and other implementation studies of how digital paperwork has worked for other companies in your industry. And we, most importantly, give you industry and regulatory updates, right? Like recently, the RBI came out with the KFS circular. So we had a full set of content and guides to help banks and NBFCs and lenders comply with the KFS circular, right? And we sent that through our WhatsApp and email updates facility, right? So you can stay up to date with legality, you can stay up to date with what others are doing with digital paperwork, and you can stay up to date with regulations that impact this process and how exactly you can comply with those regulations. So do scan this QR code. We'll also send it with the email with the recording. Do scan this QR code and do opt in if you're interested to our email and WhatsApp facility. We only hit your inbox or WhatsApp once a week, right? Sometimes twice a week, but that's only in like very outlier scenarios. Great. Thanks so much, Ronit. And thanks everyone.
Thanks, Aditya. Thank you, everyone.